Okay, so the little girl you just saw a picture of was actually left alone and abandoned in a marketplace in the Democratic Republic of Congo at only 18 months old. She was actually taken by a police officer to the local orphanage, which unfortunately was ran by a mentally ill director, so it wasn't a safe place for any of the children that were placed there. She faced many horrors, such as starvation, sometimes only getting one piece of bread a day, maybe. Also abuse. She talks about getting hit, kicked, punched, and her little tiny head stomped on, and many other terrible living conditions. She was also accused of witchcraft, which is a very common cultural accusation in the Congo, which has many factors leading up to it. She went to a witch doctor or exorcist of sort, so she experienced a lot of other abuse too. She got water and hot pepper mixture sprayed in her eyes, ears, and nose. She also got violently slapped in the torso, locked in a cage and deprived of food, and thrown in a deep, deep hole that she couldn't get out of, so she had to sleep there for a few nights. But there is a happy ending for this little girl. A family from my hometown actually adopted her, and it's been 2 years, and she's doing amazing, and they love her very, very much. But keep in mind that when her mom picked her up, she's only 27 pounds as a 5-year-old. The average 2-year-old weighs 30 pounds. Let that sink in a little bit. We can agree that children do not deserve to be treated this way in any country. The treatment of orphans in third world countries is unimaginable and horrific. They are plagued with malnutrition, abuse, and neglect. So first off, we're going to look into malnutrition and how it affects these children. Malnutrition runs rampant in third world orphanages. Like I said earlier in my story, they maybe get one piece of bread a day. Maybe. That's like a snack for you and me. That's nothing. So how can we expect them to develop and grow on one piece of bread? Because we can't. It's impossible. But they are doing it. Also, regular kids are getting diets full of meats, dairy, fruits, veggies, fats, carbs, and these kids are getting nothing. That can be very detrimental to the development of their brains, motor skills, personalities, everything. There's also some diseases that go with malnutrition, such as marasmus, which is when a child is deprived of all dietary nutrients and they're just a bag of skin and bones, just very, very skinny. There's also kwashiorkor, which is when they're deprived of, their diets don't have protein in it, so they have the big extended bellies that we always see in like commercials and stuff. So an organization called Food for Africa states that more than 12 cases a month of marasmus and kwashiorkor are seen in one clinic in Alexander, Africa. That's a lot. Other than these short-term effects, there's also long-term effects. An organization, A Child's Best Start, is committed to helping orphans acquire proper nutrition, and they gave a list of cognitive problems that will affect these kids for the rest of their life. Some of these include learning disabilities, language skill problems, problem-solving problems, attention deficit disorder, decreased IQ, and the list goes on. So, as we can see, nutrition is a very big problem in orphanages. Another huge problem that these orphans are faced with is abuse, which is everywhere. In recent research, UNICEF has estimated that anywhere between 500 million and 1.5 million children endure violence every year, and that's worldwide, not just in one country. That's crazy. That's a huge amount. So these kids are surrounded by abuse. I mean, it comes from the adults and the directors, the older kids, the outsiders like the witch doctor, everywhere. A recent article was actually published by Egyptian Streets on an Egyptian orphan director who was video beating the children. He would beat them with sticks and his hands, and he would spank them violently for even looking at the fridge. Authorities are looking into it, but these kids are still damaged from what they went through. Other than adults, the older kids are sometimes allowed to beat on the younger kids, and this is harmful because these younger kids are in their prime stages of development and they're getting so much more abuse. And there's also the outsiders, like the witch doctor, and that can be very detrimental and damaging to a child. There's also emotional abuse because they don't get the affection or love that they need and deserve. So this results in low self-esteem and many other problems. Abuse is around every corner, every second of the day, every week. They can't get away from it. A article by the Journalist Resource states that children of abuse are more likely to acquire AIDS or HIV and acquire alcoholism. So that is a big problem. And also the ASCA, Adults Surviving Child Abuse, gave some long-term effects of how child abuse affects children. They don't have stable personalities for relationships. They face depression, suicide attempts, eating disorders, drugs and alcohol abuse, and also a lot of personality disorders. So, as we can see, abuse is also a huge, huge problem in orphanages, and it also has a lot of long-term effects. The last problem or obstacle that these children face is neglect, which is just the way of life in orphanages. There's never enough people around to give these kids what they really need. Sometimes if these kids are in bad moods or they're sick, they'll receive even less attention than they already get, which is very minimal to start with. Oftentimes investigators find these kids dirty and in bad shape. And an article by Early Childhood Education Resources these writers went into an orphanage in Russia, and they say that these orphans may be restrained in cloth sacks, tethered by a limb to furniture, and also denied stimulation and sometimes left to lie in their own filth. That's neglect 100%. That is, they get no attention, and they're tied up because they don't need to be worried about. The orphan directors don't want to clean them. It's terrible. There's also another researcher, his name is Nathan Fox, from the University of Maryland, and he went into a Russian orphanage and did some research on how neglect affects the child's brain, and he found that there are sensitive points in a child's development, and when they don't receive the stimulation and nurturance that they need, it can be very detrimental to their development. Also, on Encyclopedia of Mental Disorders, they stated the long-term effects of neglect, which are stunted growth, chronic medical problems, inadequate bone and muscle problems, and lack of neurological development, which makes sense because they're not getting the stimulation that they need. So, as you can see, neglect is a very, very big problem in orphanages. They just don't get what they need in orphanages. We can all agree that these children do not deserve to be treated this way. The conditions are horrendous. The treatment that these children receive are terrible. And they see malnutrition, abuse, and neglect every single day of their lives. After this presentation, we have seen what is really, truly happening in these orphanages. And if you were compelled to help, if this story moved you, then there are tons of organizations out there that would love to have you on their side, love to just have your help, and these kids need it. So now that we are all informed on the way orphans are treated, if you want to help, that's awesome.